Childhood abuse does not have socioeconomic or racial boundaries. According to a 2010 U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration on Children, Youth, and Families Children's Bureau, 772,000 children were abused in 2008 alone. Of these young victims, abuse occurred most frequently in children under the age of 1. Over half of the abused children were girls. Neglect is the most common form of abuse. About 16% are victims of physical abuse, and 10% suffer emotional abuse. Another 10% are abused sexually.
Is telling my story easy? No. But I feel like it's something that I have to tell because there's millions of kids out there that are suffering from the same thing today. And most of them feel like they're the only one as far as a victim of child abuse. And I've come to find out that it's not just kids, it's also adults who deal with it. Hopefully this will bring some awareness and will bring some solution to the problem and have more people that will help get out there and make sure that this doesn't happen and prevent it.
Every kid wants to be loved by their mom and dad. They also need their approval. When I was just 10 years old, I made this card for my mom. I hadn't seen her talk to her much since I was 7. I was desperate for any sign from her that she cared about me. I sent her this card, but I never heard back. You see,
I was living in institutions full-time by this age. My abuse started as soon as I could crawl out of my crib. There are thousands and thousands of children suffering like I did. But it's a secret, hidden within the walls of the homes. My name is John Borgstead, and I'm 33 years old now. And I'm not a victim anymore. I am an overcomer, and I am determined to reach back and save as many kids as I can from enduring the inhumane treatment I've survived for nearly 18 years. I was born into a family of unstable parents. My mother was, on alcohol, and she took drugs. My father was in law enforcement and, of course, abused his power as well. I was reminded every day of how I was not supposed to be here, how I was a mistake, a regrettable one at that.
I never even wanted you! You are a mistake!
My mother would find a reason to get rid of me because I did not fit in with her weekly plans of partying, drinking, or interfering with a new boyfriend.
Sorry, Mom. No, Mom, I'm sorry. You're sorry? You're sorry? I'm the one who's sorry, okay? I'm sorry I ever had you. I'm sorry I have to look at you. You get in this closet. Now go, get on the ground. No, don't look at me. You look at the wall. I hate you and will not come out until I tell you you can.
As I got older, I realized that I was the only kid that was getting taken to the hospital. We were making numerous trips. Some places I would stay a week, a year, months. And as I've been actually going through different documentations, it shows that, a lot of the findings from the doctors were there's nothing wrong with him. She would admit me under all these different diagnoses. What she had to have looked up the symptoms. And the doctors would be, I know what that is, let's go ahead and admit him and we'll do some tests. Well, the tests were all inconclusive. So I was then released, and as it was time for another weekend party or a drug binge for my mother, then, it was off to the hospital again. We'd go to the emergency room, she would give the same spill or different. If the doctor didn't take it, she'd pick me up, take me out of there, and we'd go to another one. And the abuse from her was physical as well as mental, and the drugs that she would get would paralyze my body to where I wouldn't be able to move.
John's mother gave him Thorazine and Haldol. Thorazine is used for treating certain types of emotional, behavioral, or mental conditions. Haldol is an antipsychotic medication. It is also used to treat schizophrenia. These are just some of the many drugs that she gave him.
Thorazine and Haldol, when you give those and you don't have the side effect medication to it, it makes your muscles do like that.
So it paralyzes you?
Yeah, I mean, you can't move, your tongue does like, you can't swallow, nothing.
How long would the effects last?
Hours.
What would she do with you when she gave you these drugs?
One time she dropped me into a bathtub of scalding hot water.
Wow, this brings back bad memories. This is one of the many state hospitals that my mother put me in from the ages of 4 until 10. And I spent months, weeks, even years in some of these places. And we're here again today to see it for the first time since I was about 6 or 7.
Back in the 80s, they had spring beds with, the mattresses. And they would put the 4-point restraints on the bed with no mattress. So I would be tied down to a bed, a spring bed. And I'd be put into a quiet room area for hours.
Please don't put that on me, please. No, please, no, don't, please, no. Please, don't, please.
Even when you wasn't strapped to a bed, they would lock you in the quiet room, no bathroom, wouldn't let you out. I had to be, so I'd be in the corner. And if you ever look in the corner of that place, it was like rusted. I mean, urine is like acid. And over time, I wouldn't even say multiple. I mean, it's like a daily occurrence in there. I mean, it rusted. You can tell they painted over it and painted over it and painted over it because the paint was so thick from multiple times. Lice was very fluent because of the bad hygiene, where the kids having to pee in their room and in the place reeked of urine. This is a real picture that was taken on February 1985. That was at Austin. That's the cover of my book. Came from this little bitty picture.
Who took that picture?
My mother did.
What was the situation when the picture was taken?
She took me there, and I'd been there plenty of times before, and the doctor said there's nothing wrong with him, and we're not going to take you because all the tests, were come back inconclusive of the diagnosis that she was trying to give. So she took off out the door. And I went running after her. That's the picture of me running after her, trying to catch the car at the highway. I didn't go home that day. I actually stayed there until a CPS worker came. And then, of course, I got put back at my house.
What kind of abuse do you remember getting from your dad?
I remember one time that he came over to my mom's house. This was after their separation. I mean, he came over like he was armed tooth and nail. He had a extension cord, a wooden spoon, you name it. And he would pick me up and ram my head into the wall. I mean, like through the sheetrock. And I don't know, I became so immune to pain that I didn't even feel it. It's like, you black out, I guess. It's like you just, it's going to be over, but you just deal with it, I guess. My stepmother was hitting my brother, and I told her to quit. And he dragged me out of the Bronco and started ramming my head into the side of me and left me laying unconscious on the side of the road.
Get in here. Come here. Let me get you. I'm trying to tell you, boy. Shut up.
Get in there. I'm trying to get in there. Danny boy, get in there. My stepmother made him go back to get me. I mean, that's not even the only time, because the time that he abused me when I was at the house, he took me to school, and the principal, well, my teacher, Miss Fontenot, called the principal. I had bruises, arms, legs, face. I mean, I was black and blue blood. CPS came, and they took me in the bathroom. Now, back in the 80s, the bathrooms in the schools, they had that aqua blue type tile, you know? So I remember it very vividly. It was like cold, like a morgue. And they made me take all my clothes off, naked. Took pictures, everything. But my dad is a cop. What happened to the case? Nothing ever happened. He's still a cop today, working in law enforcement. As you can tell, I've been through these records several times. The spiral has broke on them. I went right back on another evaluation. This shows you I was in this place here, 9 years old, Herman, okay? This is Austin at 9.5 years old. And I was diagnosed with having a seizure disorder, which was caused by the head injury of the wall. This here says John is a 9.5-year-old boy with a long history of abuse and neglect. They're admitting this. This is what gets me right here. They know that this is happening. They see this. They've documented this. This is documented before the Texas Youth Commission was ever involved or I ever got sent off to be awarded the state. Okay, so let me finish reading it to you. John is a 9.5-year-old boy with a long history of abuse and neglect, institutionalization, and aggressive behavior. He also has been diagnosed as having seizure disorder. Everything in those two sentences just tell you everything that's happened. And during the past year was unconscious for 48 hours. This might even have been the time where she had tied the ropes around my private area. Because I know I was in the hospital and I was unconscious for a while then, and I had to have surgery. Because it swelled up like a grapefruit. And I remember coming home like in a diaper, and I had ice down there. I remember that because my granny came over. I was on the couch, and they had to change the dressings on my private area. This is my house when I was a little boy. I'd say this, when I was born, this is where I was raised at. I guess I'm 33, so you'll say 33 years ago. And this is where a lot of the traumatic incidents happened with my mother. This is the closet where my mother put me in. And as you can see, oh my God, the latch is still there. You see that? The latch is still there. When she put the rope around my private area and, I wouldn't quit screaming from the chair, she would bring me in here and put me in the closet down there. And of course, as you can see, over 33 years later, the latch is still painted over where it was, and she would shut it and lock it over. And this is where wow, that is still there 30-something years later. Is that wild?
What kind of emotions are going on inside of you?
I don't know, through the years, I've just learned how to try to block a lot of things out to where, I don't know, I don't let them bother me as much, and I don't think it's really hit me yet. I think it'll hit me when I'm by myself, and then I'll think about today later on tonight, I don't think it's processed yet. And seeing that latch was still there 33 years later, that one part is still screwed in the wall. It's just been painted over. It's like almost God saying that leave that there. They're going to come back one day. This is a card that I made for my mom, and actually it shows the year it was mailed to her. It was the 5th month, 13th day, 1989,
and it was mailed to Spring. And I hand cut out of construction paper this stuff on here, and I wrote, "I love you, Mom," and it's like a bleeding heart, but I didn't have enough red to finish. And it says, do not break this heart of mine. But that's why I named the book what I named it. And then when you open it up, it's got a little flower in it. And then on the back, it has some balloons, and it says, "I love you, Mom."
Look what a mess you are. God. You are so stupid. Look what you did.
Ah! Oh, that hurt!
Oh, quit crying.
Oh, that hurt!
This is something that I made her. It says, "Please write back, please write back, please write back, please write back, please write back," because they never wrote me. And it says, "I want the whole family to write back, please."
Hello, this is John. Can I speak to Mom?
Yeah, hold on. Hey, Mom, it's John. Do you want to talk to him? No, I don't want to talk to that brat. Hang up the phone. If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
You know, I don't ever think that I deserved it. I was always wondering why God put me in this position, you know. What was my purpose in life? Where was I going? How was I going to end up? Was I ever going to have a family? I never knew where my life would go. I know now that, you know, God never gives us more than we can handle, you know. And people always ask me that, you know, why did they do this, or why did they do that, or what do you think about how your life ended up, and, you know, or I'm sorry that you went through that. And I mean, the thing that I always tell people is it's a blessing that I went through what I went through, because I don't think there's anything that I haven't suffered that a person hasn't been through or can't even imagine. And I look at that as I'm supposed to be that person to help all those people. I was depressed, angry, frustrated at society and the system, and I was aggressive at times, but what kid wouldn't be after being put through so much and given so little? I strived hard for success. And I'm going to hang around until each and every one of you leave this building today. You have something you need to talk to me about, you want to open up, I want to be that person you talk to. Because I've been where probably every one of you have been, and some. I want to tell you a story today. Tell you a story about a little boy who was born into a world with parents who didn't want him.
There was no windows. It was a door that was locked from the outside. It had a bed and a sheet, coffee can or milk jug, just depending on what she had in there for me to use. Coffee can was for number 2, milk jug was for number 1. So that's where I used the bathroom. And I didn't eat a lot because she would crush that stuff up in there in my food, in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for me to eat it. And I started realizing when I ate, I got stiff, so I wouldn't eat. And my sisters would bring me food and slide it under the door. I just got so tired of being locked in there. I mean, because it's like you get a taste of freedom to go to school. And then you come home, and I had to lock myself in there because you turn the lock from the outside and shut the door. Before she got home, I had to have been in there. And after time, I mean, I just got to the point from not just the abuse, but the pills and the medicine and drugs and everything else, that the only way I knew to get out of all of it was to kill her. And I took a butcher knife out of the drawer one night, put it under my mattress, because I was thinking about it. And they never locked their room, never. So I was thinking of how I was going to do it and get away with it. And I knew that I had to kill my stepdad first, because he would be the one that would fight the most if he saw what I did. So if I got him first, then I'd have to go after her second. She would be in shock. She wouldn't move from seeing what I would do to him. So I had it planned out, perfect. And the night that I went in the hallway, my sister was standing at the door, at the bathroom door down the hall, looking at me when I came around the corner.
John, what are you doing? Go back to bed. No, you go back to bed. Go back. Don't do it. Don't do it. Sweetie, don't do it.
And I'm glad it never happened, because that would have been something that would have been on my conscience, and everybody's life would have turned out different.
Who are we going to see again?
That's Ryan.
And are you excited to see her?
Yeah.
Who was she in your past?
My caseworker. When I first came into the Corsicana State Home, I was 10 years old. She was my caseworker there. You know where Miss Ryan's room is?
Yes, sir. Go right down this hall. It's
Okay.
the last room on the left.
Okay, thank you so
All right,
much.
have a good day.
Miss Ryan? Oh my
John
goodness, girl.
Borgstead.
You.
I am so good. How are you? I have to tiptoe to hug you. Oh my goodness, John. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good.
You still look as pretty as you did when I saw you last. You hadn't changed a
Many
bit.
years ago. Well, you've changed quite a bit.
I've gotten bigger. What kind of kid do you remember me as?
I think you know the answer to that. I remember the first day you came, 10. And they said, he's the worst kid that's ever been through the agency at 10. So you can imagine
What you was
kind of
ready
what our
for.
antennas were like.
Kids that act out that way, and the reason I know this is because, of course, I've been through it. You know, they have so much anger, aggression, you know, hatred towards the people who've abused them. I mean, they have so many mixed emotions.
When when you've never met a parent, you have to take a parent at face value until they do something that causes you to think or believe otherwise. And your mother never came to visit. I had very few phone calls with her, and they were typically related to your desire to go home and you saying, I can go home. She said I could come home, but y'all won't let me go. And so just confronting that issue with her.
Right. Do you believe that she cared about me?
No, I didn't believe that she cared about you. Because when parents care about their children, despite what's going on, they make an effort. You know, they come to visit, and at Corsicana County, you know, we provided resources.
Right.
We pay for bus tickets, or we pay for gas, and we had a family center. So we worked really hard to accommodate parents, to get them to come and visit their children. And, you know, when parents don't take advantage, it says that perhaps what they say is not really what they mean. So wasn't real sure she cared about
you. You know, something that bothered me is when I finally found her 20-something years later, she had adopted 2 more little girls and 2 more boys and was doing the same thing.
Abusing them?
Yes. They had nothing in their rooms. They were being over-medicated. It was the same cycle. It was happening all over again. It was like she didn't want to let that go. And I think the little girl was probably about 4 and still couldn't speak and was in diapers, and it was like deja vu all over again with the whole deal. But she did. She manipulated people so good. Well, I'm here to tell you today, people, no matter how bad you are, how bad you think you are, there is always somebody somewhere that is tougher than you. And they will show you that. So don't take it there. Don't put yourself in that position. You be better than yourself. You be better than the person next to you. You try harder. You fight your past. You show them you can be something. You will be something.
One of the things that really kind of bothered me was the fact that we did work so closely with you and felt that you know, there certainly were people that you trusted, and I felt that I was one of those people.
Right.
But you never disclosed any of that abuse to any of us.
Well,
or at least not to me.
And I'll tell you why.
That was disheartening.
Because every time in a lot of these places that I would get close to people, and then I would be forced to move on. You know, I always wondered when I was going to leave there. It was inevitable it was going to happen. So if I got close to someone, I was looking for them to be that parent figure, and it didn't happen because I knew I was going to leave. So I never let myself, my whole heart, get that close to people because I knew one day that I was going to leave there. Now, I know from digging up from previous records, I was actually reading some of the Austin and Herman Hospital records where the doctors acknowledged the abuse and the neglect and still sent me back. And I think this happens every day all over the country. So if doctors know this is happening to a kid, would I have ever even made it to the Texas Youth Commission? No.
No.
It would have been dealt with. She would have been dealt with.
In another system.
Exactly. It would have been dealt with. That's what I'm doing today. If you see this happening, if a doctor notices it before the kid gets there, put a stop to it. Get that kid into a foster home somewhere before the abuse continues like it did and gets more aggressive. And then what do you have?
You have a kid who has a lot of issues.
And then you have a product of what? The Texas Youth Commission, Texas Department of Corrections. And where does our serial killers and everything else come from? Abuse. And then what do they medicate with abuse? Alcohol, drugs. And it just rolls. And it's a vicious cycle. I was going to come down here today to talk to you guys about my story. But I really don't see that as being important, being that a lot of you are in here for different various crimes as far as burglary, robbery, stuff like that, right? A lot of you in here? Yeah? A lot of y'all in here for stuff like that? Okay. Okay.
I want to tell you about the 3 words that's on that poster instead of telling you about my life, because sooner or later you're going to find out about that. I'm sure Crockett is going to get the book for you guys to read. Dream, work, and achieve. We all have dreams about doing different things in our lives, right? Some of you guys might want to be a rapper or a business owner. Whatever it is that you have dreams of doing, you have to do something in order to accomplish that dream. And right now, doing that is working the system. And once you accomplish that to get out there, then you have to do other things in order to get what you want, to get where you need to be. And it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be easy. And there's going to be people that are going to shut doors in your face all day long. I'm going to tell you that right now. I've had 100 of them closed on me. But I still kept trying, and I still kept trying to go after what I wanted to achieve that goal.
I like going into the institutions, speaking to the kids, but a lot of the times whenever I go back, it takes me back as a child, and it makes you feel physically like you're that kid walking down the hall 20-something years ago. You don't feel like you're that big, tall person anymore. It really takes you back in time.
There's a lot of people along the way that made me feel like that they love me and they filled that space. Like Miss McGraw, I mean, I didn't have any family to take me home on the weekends when other people's family came and picked up all their kids here, She'd take me and get a haircut, do stuff with me.
John needed that. He didn't have a family. So I knew that, and he missed the mother figure. Off campus, I could be more of a mother than I could on campus. On campus, I was his supervisor. So, but I didn't let him get away with anything, nothing. Because I wanted him to be the best person he could be.
She would go grocery shopping, and I'd go with her. And we'd go in the parking lot to put all the groceries up. And once she had the last bag, I was the next bag. And she would throw me into the trunk and go. And then when she come home, pop the trunk to take all the groceries out. And I would jump out like nothing ever happened.
Kids are abused, but not to that extent, no.
So John's abuse was worse than...
Oh, his was horrific. I mean, it's worst case scenario. Kids are neglected. They're left at home in front of the TV while parents go do what they want to do. They're beat. A lot of them are sexually abused. But not many kids get locked in a trunk, not fed. Your parents doing everything they can to prove that you're crazy so they can commit you to an institution just because they don't want to deal with you.
I want to know when you learned to read. That was always really important to me.
Well,
I took you to Scottish Rite.
Yes. Miss Withrow helped me a lot. She would come on campus during the weekends, and she used that material from the school.
I volunteered with a lot of kids out there. I just loved it. And she told me he didn't know how to read. So I got books from some of my kids' teachers on phonics and stuff like that, and took them out there, and we worked on learning to read.
How old was he?
14, 15.
And he couldn't read at all?
Barely. Not much above cat, dog,
She took me on the back road because she thought I took it, and I didn't. She tried to suffocate me with a plastic bag. And I got away and went to a pasture for help. He took me back to her. She was very convincing.
How can you tell a little boy you don't need a mom? You're smart enough. You're good looking enough. All you got to do is follow rules. You got to work. The world is gonna love you. How can you convince a person, a little boy, that can happen for him? And I don't think he believed us then. And I think it took some time to believe, because there's a lot of things that happened with John that we kept from him that I didn't tell until he was a grown man. I mean, he was a grown man. It's just been, I guess about 5 years before maybe he wrote the book. Told him about the letters that came back that were never delivered at his house, that we intercepted those letters, the telephone calls we intercepted, that we thought was not in his best interest. And back then we had an excellent caseworker, Gwen Ryan, that she knew. We just knew that it's some things we couldn't tell John because he was just a time bomb, ready to explode at any time. And basically, he grew up here, he was mischievous, but he wasn't a mean child. The things he did to himself. He didn't try to hurt staff. He didn't tear up property.
I went through times in my life to where I didn't even want to be here. I wanted to end it, commit suicide, and I've tried. I took over 200 and something pills, flatlined on the table, was gone.
Hey sis, it's Sean. I was just gonna let you know that I just took 250 pills and I just can't handle life anymore. It's just too painful. So I was just gonna let you know I'm gonna be in a better place now, and I love you.
I've tried to hang myself. I cut my wrist and sat in a hot bathtub so I could bleed out. And I've got scars on my wrist where I've done it, you know. But when you endure all the pain as a child, you're put into institution after institution, even before you can walk. Okay, I mean, your first person who teaches you to tie a shoe is not even your mother and father. The person who teaches you how to swim is not your dad. And you wake up one day and you're still going through it, and you ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I continuing to suffer through this pain? Why me? How much can a child take at the young age? How much can they endure? And there's times where I said, enough. I can't do it no more. I just want out. And you know, it wasn't even the fact of, you know, if I go to hell, you know, I was done. So I wanted to give up, and I tried. But it didn't work, so there had to have been a reason for me to be here.
And I know how a lot of you feel. I know about a lot of the things that you go through. And I know when people say, I feel your pain, I know what you're going through, your ears close. Because the first thing that comes to your mind is you're lying and you don't. I do. I've been there. We're all wondering, who's the next person that's going to give up on us in our life? Where are we going to be tomorrow? Well, I want to tell you, live for today, not tomorrow. Ask God to help you. Pray and have faith that He will lead you in the right path. Because we only live once, people. The things of your present will affect your future. You are your own worst enemy. Decide if you want to help yourself or hurt yourself.
I didn't have someone that I could depend on. I didn't have someone that I could go to and say, these are my feelings. I trust you. I didn't have a family. I didn't have worth of a family. I had people who loved me that I considered as a family. And a lot of these kids are abandoned. A lot of these kids are addicted to drugs by not their choice. They're born by a mother of addicted to drugs. You know, they're put in a family, and there's so many things that I could do that's not being done, even in private institutions. I mean, you know, we all dream of what we can do to change, but how many people act on it? How many people say this is something that I want to do and do it? But I've always pictured having a boys' ranch with a log cabin and having 12 kids.
There was just something about him that just grabbed you by the heartstrings. He just, you know, he had a huge heart. I mean, John was very loving. When you got him alone,
I'll be, you know, a father figure to him or a mother figure. I don't want it to be an institution. I want it to be unlike any other place that's ever been done, because I've been there. I know what all the stipulations are. I know how they run these places. And, you know, when I was a kid, I seen what worked for me, what brought me closer to someone, and what pushed me away from you. And I know a lot of you might say, well, you know, he was just in the Texas Youth Commission, he don't know. I spent 5 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. I've been to prison already because I thought I was tough, just like you. And I said, you know what? I'm going to leave here and I'm going to do stuff my way. And ain't nobody going to tell me nothing. Ain't nobody going to say nothing to me, or I'm going to go off. And I noticed as a couple of you walked in the door, how you act now. That's going to reflect on the way you are in the future if you don't change today. I had this idea that, you know, I'm going to make my parents recognize me. I'm going to be the biggest, baddest, worst person they ever saw. I want to be bigger than John Gotti. I want to go down in history being the bad guy. So I started running guns. From Mexico to anywhere else, we had a black market auction where we'd sell automatic firearms, dynamite, you name it. I was 18 years old and I was moving $20,000, $30,000 a day. Didn't think twice about it. And if you cross me, you know, it's a competitive business. It's something that everybody wants what you got, especially the people that you deal with. They want you gone. The day that I actually went to jail after I'd done that, the back of the house was shot up, where my bed was, full of bullets. Saved again.
John was a very smart kid. But he had just been beat down to the point that he didn't feel like he amounted to anything, and that he couldn't be anything because nobody had ever given him the chance or showed him what kind of person he could be.
There was a day when I was in prison and I was sitting in my cell and I wrote my own obituary. And when you sit down and do that, and your name doesn't mean nothing but a number, you're a fallen statistic to the system, you ask yourself two questions. Do I want to make my difference in this world? Do I want my name to mean more than just a TDC number? Or do I want to make an impact to change the things that I've went through in order to help those people who are suffering now? And when you really sit there and think about it, it'll blow you away. And I always tell people, you know, write your own obituary. Imagine yourself as that pastor sitting up there at the pulpit doing your funeral. So I came to the conclusion I wanted to make a difference in this world. Here I am. You know, this is what I'm doing.
Oh, what I would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat I'm in, under the crashing waves, to step out of my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown where Jesus is, and he's holding out his hand. But the waves are calling out my name and they laugh at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The waves, they keep on telling me time and time again, boy, you never win. You never win. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of strength it takes to stand before a giant with just a sling and a stone, surrounded by the sound of 1,000 warriors shaking in their armor, wishing they'd have had the strength to stand. But the giant's calling out my name and he laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The giant keeps on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. You'll never win. But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. But the stone was just the right size to put the giant on the ground, and the waves, they don't seem so high. On top of them looking down, I'll soar with the wings of eagle when I stop and listen to the sound of Jesus singing over me. The voice of truth that tells me a different story. The voice
You know, as adults, we know that at some point you have to reach the point of forgiving and letting go. Excuse me. How did you reach that point with your mother?
As every kid, they're full of anger. I mean, there's times where I sat there and thought about doing something just because I had so much anger and rage. And, you know, when I got out of prison, and I said, you know what? It's a short life we live. We're not promised tomorrow. I want to forgive her. So my sister said, well, I know where she lives and she doesn't want you over there. And I said, well, I don't care. I want her to face me. You know, all those years that she lied and said that I was a threat to my family, and they were even scared to meet me when I found them, because she had told them all those years, he's going to come back, he's going to kill you, he's going to ruin your families. And I'm the biggest teddy bear you'll ever meet in your life, you know? So she took me over there and she was shopping, and she came back, and she walked through the door, and I told her I loved her, and I gave her a hug and a kiss, and I forgave her for everything. And that was a huge weight lifted off of me. She called from a payphone and told my stepdad, if he ever comes back over there, I'm going to file trespassing charges on him. And she died a year after that from the pain medication and alcohol. But I did forgive her, so, you know, I'm not bitter. I don't have any regrets. I didn't even want to see her after she passed away, you know?
No matter how bad their parents, guardians, whatever, treat them, there's still a love that they have that's almost like obsessive.
No matter how bad a child is abused, no matter what a mother or father does to them, that child always wants that acceptance. Always want to go back. And I looked at it this way too. What if she was to die tomorrow and I forgave her and everything was good? But I didn't know that. Then I would feel bad that I didn't make that available to her. But, you know, I know when I go to heaven that God's going to look at me as someone someone that lived through it, you know. I succeeded.
Once he turned it loose, he did. He just looked different in the face. His eyes looked different, you know, and I think he just held on to that. But once he was able to turn it loose and basically say, well, I don't need it or forgive, it just changed him.
I have an aunt who is down here in Spring, who was always told by my parents that there was an accident and I died. So they always said that, you know, they always thought of me as the little boy that died in an accident.
That's a bit much.
Yeah. When the book came out, and everybody like, are you a real Borkstead, you know? And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, well, who's your dad? And I told them who my mother was and who my grandmother was. And she was like, you know, I'm your aunt. And she said, well, they said you had died when you were a little boy. When you went to one of those institutions, they said you had died. But I was pretty much, they planned on that being the rest of my life with you guys. It's just being forgot about.
But it didn't end there, because I would go into these institutions and I suffered the abuse at the hands of the caretakers. And I began to feel hatred towards not just authority figures, but my mother, as well as other people who would come in contact with me, as far as my peers or anybody. I was an aggressive kid. I was one of those kids that you didn't want to be around. I had that much hatred in me.
Our kids don't have the ability to see that things can be different. They believe that the way that their life is now is the way it's going to be. even though we may preach to them repeatedly that sometimes you have to make the change. You're not going to be able to rely on your mother or your father or your sister, your grandparents. You're going to have to rely on yourselves. And that's what John has done. He began to rely on himself. And if we can get the other kids to see that, then, I think that he can make the connection a lot quicker than we can.
I got a letter from Corsicana, which is on my wall. When I went there, their security referrals went down. The kids were acting a lot better. The caseworkers actually went to administration to thank the community relations person for bringing me in there and letting them know they wanted me back.
You surprised that I'm doing what I'm doing?
I'm surprised that you're doing this, but I'm not surprised that you aren't a successful person, because you're always so smart and had so much potential. But so many behaviors got in the way of you allowing certain people to help you reach that potential. Right. I just always felt that you were one of the individuals that the system failed, because we didn't really capitalize on what was truly behind all that behavior.
I always used to play the song every morning when I woke up, and it was the Michael Jackson song, "Man in the Mirror." And and I play it every morning to this day. I have it in my CD player, and it's on pause as we speak at the house. And it says, "Man in the mirror, I'm going to make that change. How does it go? It says, I'm asking him to change his ways. No misses to the man in the mirror. If you're going to make a difference, you're going to make a change in this world, and you look at yourself and you make that change." So I used to listen to that song every morning, and I always said, I'm going to be that guy. I want to be like him. Not a dancer or a singer, because I can't sing, but I've always looked at things like on TV or people who've done things like big things, and I've always said, I want to get out. I want to take all this stuff that's happened to me, and I want to make a big change. I want to make a big difference, and I want to be something that people will remember one day,
So John, what do you say to young people in these institutions to make a difference?
I've been where you've been at. I know what you're going through, and I want to help you. I want to give you what I didn't have. I want to make this place better than it was when I was here.
These are letters from kids that have written me from the Texas Youth Commission. I go and speak to them and stuff. So this kid says, "Dear Mr. Borkstead, my name is, and I am 16 years old, and I am located at the Crockett State School. But when you came to speak to us, I almost started to cry, because your life was similar to my life. I was abused and neglected. And when I got locked up, I was lonely, and I still am. My adopted parent called up here and said that they do not want nothing to do with me no more. So I do not have no family to go home to when I get out of TYC. I am writing you because I need some help to find me a good family. Please write back."
Did you?
Oh yeah, I wrote him back.
As a kid, did you blame God for your circumstances?
I didn't. No. And, a lot of people ask me that, and they say, even as the time I escaped my mother's, she tried to suffocate me. I ran to a pastor, and he turned me back over to her. He believed her. And my pastor had actually read the book, and he said, "Well, I don't know how you still believe in God today after that," because that would turn most people the other way. And I said, a lot of people do things, and they know not what they do. But it's like, you could do something to me today, I'll forgive you for it tomorrow. But there's a lot of people who do certain things, and we have choices whether we socialize with those people. It's like I tell people all the time, it's like if you do something to me, I have a choice whether or not to socialize with you. But tomorrow, I'm not gonna hold it against you. but it doesn't mean I still have to socialize with you. Because if you're something negative for me, if you're not working with me, if you're not working for something to better the life here for kids, I'm not saying we won't be friends, but we have two different objectives. And that's something that holds someone down. It's like a boat with an anchor. You need a crew that's going to move forward and not hold you back. And more negativity that you have and more people that's not with the same vision, then it's taking the whole mission somewhere else.
So is there like a 3-step plan or a 5-step plan or anything like that you give the kids to start turning their life around?
Well, it all starts with the kid. And you have to forgive those who have hurt you. That's the first step. It's like an alcoholic or someone who's addicted to drugs. You got to admit your problem. But the people who have hurt you, they're the problem.
I think he can make an impression on a lot of kids that you can hit that stumbling block, but with perseverance, honesty, integrity, and credibility, hard work, hitting the pitfalls and bouncing back up, accepting your consequences when you get them, do what you need to do to get right, to be a good citizen. I think he'll be a role model for that. Because John has hit some stuff. As smart as he is, he knew that he told me it was an electric company and he made the highest score. But he couldn't get the job because he was a felon. And I told him at the time, that's part of the consequences. But it's things that you can do. I know you want that job right now, but you don't need to go back into doing something that's gonna pile some more paper on you, some more reasons why people can't trust you. I say, just look within yourself. And I inspired him to also, to be spiritual. There is a higher power. I'm not gonna say that every time you want something, he goes swoop down and give it to you. But there is a higher power. Things happen to you for reasons. If John had got that job, he wouldn't be where he is now. Wouldn't be doing what he is now. That job, he could help people when they had the money to pay for his services. This way, he can help a child. And I tell him, if you help one child out of 20, as a nation, we still got a chance.
It takes more out of a person's soul to be angry at somebody. It takes more time, more feelings, as if you forget, forgive, let go, and let God. Because without Him, without love for one another, where are we going to be? Where are we going to be? Where is it all going to go? You have so much hatred, and you have to trust people. You have to forgive them for the things that they've done, and you really just have to push. Success is at your fingertips. How bad does one person want it? Where do you want to be? Here, after this, prison? Do you want to be a movie star, a singer, actress, politician, judge? You can do anything. Anyone can. But it's where they want to take their life from there. After you forgive them, you start working on, your problems. What is it that pushes you away from people? What is it that drives you away from them? What is it that hurts you? What is it that upsets you? There's a lot of things when it comes to, healing. There's things that can trigger things in your past as far as abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse. It's something that can pop up on TV, and it's going to trigger those emotions. It's going to trigger the things that you want to forget. But we have to learn how to deal with it. We have to learn how to live our lives in spite of what's happened to us. And every day is a new day. Is it ever going to go away? No. Are you ever going to be totally healed? No. The past is the past, the future is the future, but can you forget the past? No. You can shove it away as much as you want to. You can depend on a psychologist, medication. Eventually you're going to grow up and you're going to need to live a life. And all that's not going to be available. Use the negative things that have happened to you in a positive way to help someone else get through what you went through.
He's talking with the lawmakers, trying to make new laws to prevent more child abuse. But John is as sincere as he can be. He has come, you're talking about a kid that's been institutionalized the majority of his life from 3 to 18 and then went to prison. So he's been at the bottom. And if anybody can come out of that, if John can come out of that, anyone can. And that's what John's heart is in it for, to help the kids who don't believe that there's any hope.
John, I just want you to know that Texas is proud of you. The Texas House of Representatives is proud, because we need more people that are willing to step out in faith and work to help make it own and allow recognition of all the work that needs to be done with the child abuse that we're going to tolerate here in our state. And I appreciate you being willing to step out and making yourself a target. And you're willing to set up and make known some of the personal aspects of your life. I know it had to be challenging to you to do that. And yet, I think the children of Texas certainly benefit from all your work, and we appreciate it greatly. May God bless you as you continue to.
Thank you. This is another one from another kid. It says, "Dear Mr. John, my name is," and he gives his name, "You just left my dorm like 5 minutes ago. And when you said I could write to you, it made me feel happy because, well, I grew up without a dad. Well, he has been in and out of prison since I was a baby. And every time he would be out, he would hit me. Well, and for me, I grew up around gangs, drugs, money, and everything else. I am 18 years old and got 2 daughters and my wife. And well, I never had a dad type of person I could talk to. And well, I'm in here and my wife is out home with my daughters, and I feel like I'm losing her. She don't know why I'm in here, and I haven't seen her or my mom or daughters since August, and I don't know what to do anymore. I am losing it. I'm starting not to care and starting not to get in fights, and I don't care if I go to prison. But since you've been through this, could you tell me what should I do? I don't have nobody, my wife and kids. Could you please help me? Please, if I could please have one of your books." And it says, "P.S. Please write back." And yes, I do want God in my life.
What did you tell him?
I wrote him back, and I had the chaplain, the volunteer chaplain, Gary at Brownwood, go pray with him. And he wrote me a response back on the email too, that he went and prayed with him. And I sent him some Bible verses to look up for patience about his anger. I have the Bible book A to Z, so you can look up different things you want the kids to work on and show them, reference them through the Bible for them. And I did that. And I told him I'll help him however I can, but I don't want to promise him anything, because I know when I was a kid, people always promised me something that they could never fulfill. So I try very hard not to say something that I cannot do. And I love, man, every time I see these kids, it just brings so much joy to my heart, you know. Something else they ask me too, how much you getting paid to come out here and talk to us? You know what I tell them? Nothing.
Nothing.
No, I don't. Any institution If they have control of where they're at, now if it's a church or organization, I do. But when it comes to Texas Youth Commission or halfway houses, not a dime. Because they don't have control over where they're at, and those are the ones that need the most hope. You know, I have a slogan I use, saving one child at a time. I can't save them all. I know I can't. I make a difference. I'd like to have a boys' home one day to where I can take and, you know, do all the things that I didn't have.
I see John making a difference in so many kids' lives. Kids that are in facilities and kids that have been scared to come forward. By hearing John's story, I think it will give a lot of kids the strength to come forward. And I think another thing that John excels in is his witness for God. Because so many of these kids blame God because they've never been taught about God. And John has said that without God, he wouldn't be where he is today. And somebody that's been through as much as him, there's nobody that could be a better witness for God than him.
Dying on the inside, feels like I'm losing my touch and I don't know why. This time I'm ready to come in. This time I'm ready to let you in. Come to me. Come to me. And I don't have to feel the pain I felt before. Past regrets feels like falling too far and there's no